Yet our next speaker is somebody from the world of media, who's a broadcaster, presenter, entertainer, museum lover extraordinaire, I've just discovered, who's promised us a brief 2-hour set on why he loves the Narrowboat Museum of Northampton at night. Andrew Collins.
That's more like a threat than an introduction, really. I'm not going to do 2 hours. I've got a 2-minute one that works just as well. Yeah, I'm here to get you excited about museums and galleries, which I imagine you already are, so it should be an easy job, and I'm really excited about them. It's nice to actually share the podium with a former Culture Secretary who's interested in culture. It's not a given, is it? I mean, come on. No names mentioned. Okay, museums at night. Why they're a good idea. One, all the exhibits come alive, which is quite exciting if you go at night. You've seen the film. The big smiling statue starts talking and the waxwork of Theodore Roosevelt rides around the little cowboys and Indians. It's quite exciting. That doesn't actually happen, does it? Another good idea why museums at night are excellent is that sometimes you go to a major art gallery and there's a Grand Master of the Priory of Sion dead on the floor, laid out in a kind of grotesque parody of a Leonardo anatomical drawing with a pentagram drawn on his chest in blood. That never happens either, does it? But if you want to know why museums at night are a good idea, think of the opposite. Nightclubs during the day. Now, I've appeared on a number of TV shows as a talking head, and they're always shot in nightclubs during the day. You really don't want to see them during the day. Carpets are appalling. I mean, really disgusting. Now, I really genuinely think anything that gets people through the doors of art galleries, museums, is a good thing. I grew up in the 70s in Northampton, and we came down on a couple of day trips to London during the 70s, and we only went to museums. We went to the Natural History Museum, where I fell in love with the big blue whale in the whale hall, and we went to the Science Museum, which in those days, for the first time, had knobs you could press and levers you could pull. It was the birth of interactivity, I guess. And we thought they were brilliant. I had no idea there was other stuff in London. We just came down and saw those 2 museums and went home again. I thought that was it. Never saw Big Ben, never saw any of the other stuff. And I'm kind of grateful now, because that sort of started my love affair with museums and galleries. Even though in those days, and this is really hard to explain to kids, dinosaurs were just made of bones and they didn't move. We thought that was brilliant enough. You know, there's some dinosaur bones. Why would they move? Why would they have skin? Nowadays, kids obviously expect a lot more. But that's okay, that's progress. In Northampton, there was, and still is, I found out, a museum in the middle of Abington Park. I don't know how well you know Northampton, probably not that well. But this was free. It's a local museum, and it's still going. I'm really delighted to find it on the internet. It's there, it's got military uniforms, a lot of leather stuff. It's, I think, something to do with, no, seriously, kind of leather making tools and stuff like that. And when I was a teenager, my friend Kevin and I, in the 80s, we were goths, and we used to hang around the museum because it was free. That was a good enough reason, wasn't it? You could go there for free, nobody could throw you out if you had stupid hair, and so you could spend all day there, and we did sometimes. Yeah, I know. We could have gone out and tried to get off with girls, but we didn't. We spent a lot of time at the Abington Park Museum, and I'm glad we did. I know now it's a Grade 1 listed building and was once lived in by the granddaughter of Shakespeare. I didn't know that then. I didn't care. It was free. So I have travelled the world, and whenever I arrive in a new city, the first thing I do is find somewhere that costs money to get into and go in there and have a look round. This is the best way, I think, to connect with the city. So that means I've been to the Museo del Prado in Madrid, and I've seen Las Meninas by Velázquez. I stood there, taking it all in, read the stuff, got inside the picture. I've been also to the Reina Sofia, also in Madrid, and seen Guernica, which is this huge thing, and I've experienced the tragedy and the suffering in that picture, and it's amazing. I've also seen the backs of 50 mobile phones in the Louvre. I'm pretty sure Mona Lisa was behind them, but I couldn't see that. I've also been to the Teddy Bear Museum in Dorchester, which is the freakiest place I've ever been. It's got life-size teddy bears sitting around in Victorian scenes. It scared the life out of me, and I was an adult when I went. And I've only just found out today that it's part of the Museums at Night initiative, so you can go there at night. If you come out of there alive. Honestly. I've also been to the Beatrix Potter Museum in Windermere, which is nice. It's got little rabbits, little cats. So, you know, wherever you go, you can pick up on culture. It doesn't matter if it's big or small, cheap or expensive, historical or modern, you can still get stuff out of it. And when I was at art school in London in the mid-80s, I had an ideological argument. It was my first ideological argument with my art history lecturer. He said that you had to see paintings as they were, the real thing in a gallery. And I decided to argue with him about this and said that postcards of art were much more important, because anybody in the world could see a postcard of a picture, but you had to be in the right place at the right time and be able to get into the gallery to see the actual thing. So I said they were much more, well, basically I was trying to get across to him this was a socialist utopia where everybody had a postcard of Guernica, whereas he said, well, you have to go to Madrid to see Guernica. It doesn't really count if you don't go and see it there. And I thought he was right, but I thought I'd argue with him anyway. And I was very pleased that I did, now looking back on it, because I think both have their place. But now I'm old, I'm probably not as old as him, but I'm getting on. I haven't got a beard either. But I'm more like him now, and I think you do have to see the real thing. So I completely refute anything I said in the 80s. And the Abington Park Museum also used to, and still does, again I've checked, have an open-air art exhibition every year. So in the museum itself, and then spilling out to the grounds of Abington Park, they have local artists. You can enter pictures. And basically everybody can go, it's free. You can look at the pictures, they're often of local scenes in Northampton, which again, you're probably not interested in, but I really was, and probably still would be, because it's my hometown. And you can buy them as well, and sometimes you see a little red sticker on them, and you think, how brilliant, that one's been sold. And then when I got to a certain age, I entered my first picture into the Abington Park Museum art exhibition, and no one bought it. I'm just waiting for the reaction. I know, there's a lot of photosynthesis coming off that hedge, and we're all a bit tired and hot. I assume it's real. But nevertheless, what happened at that moment, at age, I must have been age 17, 18, is that I had something in an exhibition that was in a museum that other people could look at and not buy. And it was an amazing thing to realise that museums weren't some faraway thing that other people had stuff in. You could also have a picture of Marlon Brando in Apocalypse Now that you put a lot of effort into. But no bastard wanted. So do something different is the idea of this initiative, which I think is a good idea. So do something different. There's so much going on, it's ridiculous. I've written a few things down that I'd quite like to see if I could. There's a silent disco at Tate Liverpool, which I like the sound of. Beer and Skittles, Cheese and Pickles, that's the Bakewell Old House Museum. Carshalton Water Tower is open, which is near where I live, so I might go down there, have a look at the water tower at night. There's also a sleepover at the Cabinet War Rooms. You can sleep in Churchill Shelter, or by the time of the weekend, of course, it will be retitled Nick Clegg Shelter. And, sorry, it was a joke. And you can also have your leg amputated, apparently, at the Old Operating Theatre in London in a 19th century manner, by gaslight, which I'm definitely not going to do. Also, as a final PS, the Stoke Brewing Canal Museum, which is the nearest I can find to Northampton, and that's what this whole thing's been about, Northampton, is also open at night. You can go on a narrowboat down the canal. It's exciting. So I'll leave you just with a piece of advice. If you do go to the Louvre and find the Grand Master of the Primary of Siam laid out there with the on his, dead, just call a symbologist. Because it only happens in Dan Brown novels, so it doesn't happen in real life. So it's lovely for you to stand here listening to me. I've enjoyed just standing here talking anyway. Even if you weren't here, I'd still be doing it. So thank you very much. Lovely thing. Let's have some more wine. Thank you.
Andrew, thank you. Thank you, and thanks also to Chris. There's one little bit of the promo that I guess we ought to do, and that is to remind you all that Museums at Night is the weekend of 14th to 16th May, and it happens right across Europe. It's part of La Nuit des Musées, which has got something like 2,500 institutions right across Europe participating. We have 300, more than 300 this year, which is really exciting. But that concludes the speeches. Thank you all very much indeed for coming. I've got a few thank yous. I'd like to thank particularly Caroline Worthington and the staff here at the Florence Nightingale Museum for hosting us. I'd like a heartfelt thanks to the MLA and Renaissance Funding, without which Culture 24 would be selling a big issue. I'd like to thank the BBC and the British Museum, because thanks in the main to the History of the World in 100 Objects, we've been able to do a kind of deal with the BBC, which looks like it's going to be very advantageous to all of us, and the BBC History magazine is helping to promote Museums at Night. And I would like to thank very much the staff of Culture 24, who worked incredibly hard and have put a huge amount into this event this evening. So thank you all, and thank all of you very much indeed for coming. There's more drinks, as Andrew said, so enjoy yourselves, and somewhere between the 14th and 16th of May, whether you want to climb a water tower, get your leg amputated, or do something else, please take part, and please tell your friends, and please enjoy yourselves. And thank you very much for coming.